Hello, fellow leaders, and thank you for joining me for this call to discuss the future of technology at Dargy and Grix. Today, I want to talk about how we pursue technology with responsibility to ensure that we are competitive within industry. The project that I want to position today is leveraging artificial intelligence throughout our company, specifically starting with the human resources department. With today's AI landscape, if you are not embracing AI, you are actually falling behind and at a competitive disadvantage. There are a number of benefits and drawbacks to artificial intelligence within a company. However, let's first off talk about many of the marquee benefits of the process. There's a reduction in repetitive tasks and enhanced automation, especially through the deployment of what we now call agentic AI, defined in the text by Acharya as autonomous systems designed to pursue complex goals with minimal human intervention. The key being here minimal human intervention. When we hear Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, discuss agentic AI and talk about it at a company, he plans to deploy over 150 million agents across the NVIDIA landscape. Agentic AI in HR specifically can be used to increase the time to value for hiring cycles. I mean, looking through every single application and also planning custom onboarding for each individual person is a tedious process. And if this can be automated in a low risk version where it's initial screening, where it's initial onboarding tasks, where there's not much human oversight needed, it can be critical for enhancing the time to value at the company. We can also leverage AI for HR comment complaints across the business itself. People often want to provide feedback but don't want to click on radio buttons and fill out forms. So instead, leveraging a human like chatbot or even a digital human, you can go ahead and enhance that experience to allow them to provide real time feedback to a real time avatar. Finally, looking at the scalability and what we always talk about in any process cost reduction. We can leverage AI to go ahead and span across our whole entire company and grow as we need it to, expanding and developing use cases as it's all built in the same matrix multiplication GPU based framework. This can help us reduce a lot of these red tape tasks where it's resubmit this document or edit this stuff. So we have AI work to make sure that everything fits the formatting it needs and allowing for AI agents which can do creative problem solving tasks to move past these barriers. Now, what are the inherent risks of AI? Well, we always talk about garbage in, garbage out when we talk about data processing. Well, now it's bias in, bias out when we look at a lot of these large language models. We've moved from, kind of strategically placed AI to generative AI and LLMs, and now we're on agentic AI. But as stated in the text by Futches, these algorithms have demonstrated the ability to exhibit human-like discriminatory bias. We have to start at the beginning. You can't adopt an LLM or adopt an open source entity without understanding why it's rated, where its data is coming from, and understanding why there'd be bias inside of these. If you vectorize your database and you put it in to feed into an LLM or a model, it's only going to inherently change, 50 megs of a multi-trillion parameter model. It's not going to impact it greatly. So understanding what those models are or training your own is critical for these businesses. And we must always talk about security. Anytime we're talking about anything in technology, it should be centric part of the discussion. This focuses on in human resources proprietary information or even personal information. If it's fed into an LLM and that LLM is externally facing, that information could be accessed. So we must be sure that when we're training this AI or fine tuning it, we know where that data is going. The next conversation is around hallucinations. And this is a common topic here because what is generative AI? It's generative. It's creating something new based off historical evidence. It's not necessarily factual, and it's also not going to necessarily always operate in the way we intend it to do if guardrails are not set properly. So, because of this, AI is not 100%, and there must be a little bit of human oversight, or at least AI checking AI oversight, to ensure their accuracy in essential tasks. Now, AI can replace human jobs. Does it have to? Not always. We'll talk about that as we go forward. So, looking at AI risk mitigation strategies, there's AI automate, model testing for bias and inaccuracy across the environments. When we first off decide what LLM, it's best to use a multitude of LLMs and kind of test them, figure out which one has the least inherent bias, and oftentimes use smaller niche LLMs like 7 billion parameter models that can be hosted on AI PCs today. We have to look at the reasoning and insight into AI because AI can explain its reasoning. When we don't ask it for that kind of information, where are your sources? Provide me those sources from our own databases. We're just putting a black box in. black box out. We don't really know what happens. And because of that, there can be a lot of issues. We also talked about the three I's in data isolation, which is data isolation, immutability, and integrity. As stated in the course text, customers and government regulators are becoming worried about personal data privacy, leading to tighter data privacy laws. This is across industry, and we have to go ahead and make sure we understand why we can protect this data, why we need to protect this data, and ensure it's there. And looking at human oversight, there's always going to be human intervention within the AI landscape. When we talk to Jensen Huang at NVIDIA, he has 30,000 employees today and intends to deploy 150 million AI agents. These are not replacing jobs. These are leveraging upskilling of his current employee workforce and increased productivity through these AI agents that augment his current 30,000 employees and his future state 30,000 employees. Ethical considerations for AI for employees are important. We have to look at what these common kind of things you might be facing across our employee landscape and even the public that will be looking at Darjeeling Bricks. We have to ensure there's equal access to AI. That includes across language barriers. That's always been a historically hard barrier to access across technology landscapes, but today there's so many translation apps, there's so many ways to have LLMs process multiple different language streams that we can go ahead and ensure equal access, especially as we expand internationally. Next, we must make sure transparency at its core. It shouldn't be a radio button like in an NVIDIA kind of NIM interface in the ai.nvidia.com website. It should be defaulted to show context. We want to see at all points, even if it takes a little bit extra compute time, where the data is coming from, how the decision making is working, so we can ensure that we can reduce bias inside these outputs. And last, there must be an alignment to human values. And this starts from the beginning. Though it's always easier to fine tune or inference with a model, sometimes models need to be trained from the ground up, or we must find and try multiple repeatable models to figure out what's the right fit for our organization. AI will be an integral part of society, regardless of the adoption rate and regulations. So, adopting AI quickly and placing it at the forefront is critical. AI is developed by AI scientists and will look like those who developed them, and it will not properly represent different franchise or international groups across our company. So, the bias placed into AI results in bias out. Oversight is going to be critical. Human intervention will always be a part of AI, even with the onset of agentic AI. So, leveraging AI today in these non-critical, minor HR tasks will give us that introduction, and we can scale from there to ensure we make sure that it's successful and accessible to all. There shouldn't be any mission critical decision making decisions without oversight from human intervention. So, as we continue to grow and change our AI landscape and our AI positioning, I think we start with a small project, we enable for scalability as it grows, and we quickly adopt agentic AI, which is the next phase of the AI growth cycle.